This is FF Design Studio 66, and today we're doing a project for Crafty Junkets. Let me stop and think about that. Crafty Junkets Swap Australia, I think it is. They do junk journaling, they do normal journaling, they use printables. There's a whole range of things that you can do. So very nice group to be in, very supportive of everybody, and it just runs really, really well. It's probably one of the best groups I've been involved in, to be honest. But today we are going to be making a project using our vintage tape and also some of the supplies that Sally had given the design team to play with. And there's a couple of other bits that I've added as well. And I could have probably done it a different way, but I chose not to. So we're going to be making library pockets. This is the one I created. This is a piece of wallpaper. This is just a piece of file folder that I'd coffee dyed. These were our vintage tapes that I made in the last video. And these were just so these were these index cards. So these are quite a large index card. I think they're 5 by 9, I want to say. Just let me check that. Oops. Oh, sorry about shaking you there. 8 by 5. 8 by 5 these are. So we will cut these down into 3 inches and we'll get 2 cards out of it, and the other piece I'll put in my stash for something else. So essentially I have a piece of manila folder that is 9 inches by 3.5 inches, and I've scored it on the long side at 4 inches and brought it up to the top. Okay, and that's essentially the base for our project. I've also a few other things that come in the kit. So I've used this vintage paper that was also in the kit, and I've adhered it to the back so that it looks nice. I've used my sanding block thing that I got hubby to make for me. So I brought these off Temu, these pieces, and this sanding disc. I think they were a 1-inch sanding disc. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to find the link to pop it in underneath. But so essentially I can actually twist this out. My husband's got one of these things where you've got where you can put a thread in there. So he drilled it and screwed that in, and then he screwed this in. So it works perfectly. I've been using it quite a lot. So, and you can see I've just distressed some of the edges with the sanding block. I do have the square sanding blocks that I've brought from Bunnings, but I found that they sometimes were a little bit too big and cumbersome to use, and this is just really short and sweet and simple. So, and it doesn't take up much room on my desk either. So the stamp, I've used a stamp on these. It was another buy from Temu, and comes with this one, which is the stamp that I've got there, and also a few others. So comes with write it on your own heart that every day is the best day of the year. Another sort of scripty type one, months of the year, and another one that's just got lines and numbers on it. So I'm using the book one, and that's the one I'll use here today. Now I have not tea or coffee dyed my cards. I just chose not to, just for time's sake today, because I didn't have any that I'd previously done. I haven't used my index cards for a little while. So we've got, the other things we've got is got this piece of wallpaper, which Sally was so generous to send out to us, which I've made this one from. But I still have some of this one left, which is also one that Sally had sent out to us, and a bit of vintage book page. So this in particular one is slightly different to this one. So this one, I think it's a little shorter on this piece. Let me just double check the measurements for this one. So this one is 3 inches high. So when I've scored it the 3-inch mark, and the whole length is 7 7/8. I think that is 1 line off the 8. And we're going to use this one as well. It's a little undersized compared to this one, but I'm okay with that. I can handle that. So first of all, we're going to move these bits of paper out the way. And I'm just going to grab some of the vintage paper here. And I want to just put a piece of it on this back section. Where's my glue? Here it is. So I don't need it to go all the way down. So I'm just going to put a line in about here somewhere. So this is just an all-purpose art glue. This is one from Couture Creations. It's actually my favourite glue to use most of the time. I've actually stuck down metal and other bits with it as well, and it's been quite good. Okay, so I'm just going to line that up on that back piece. Just going to fold that over. This paper is so fragile that I hardly have to do anything to it to get it to come off. To about there. I'll just trim this bit off as well. Yep, and we'll do the same on this one. I'll put this one on here as well. So this one does have to come down a little bit further because this flap's a bit shorter. Okay, let's put this one on. This glue does give you a tiny little bit of wriggle room before it sets up, but it does dry rather quickly, which is good. Okay, put that over there. Spit up. It's not very straight, that bit, but that's okay. Nobody's going to see that. Okay. A couple of little bits there that haven't stuck down properly, so just give it a little bit of extra glue. Because I do want them stuck down quite well. Okay, so that's the first step. Now the next step we're going to do, I'll just move these out of the way because we'll do both of these at the same time. Next step we're going to grab our different, that's a little bit off, isn't it? Let me just tidy this up a little bit. Oh, it was just that hangover bit, that's all right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get our wallpaper. Do this one first. So I'm just going to, I'm going to do it on this end, so it's on the same side. So do it on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put the glue on the flap and glue the flap to the base of wallpaper. I must admit it's been really fun working with the wallpaper. I've not used it before. And I did, one of the other ladies in the Crafty Junkets group, they put up a link for another place that sells wallpaper at a reasonable price, like the scraps and that for people who do scrapbooking and stuff. So I've actually brought some of it, and I might show you a little bit of that at the end of this session, if I can put my hands on it easily enough. Okay, so we're going to put that one on there, and we're just going to cut it out. That around there. I'm just going to cut this piece off as well. Okay, so that's that one. I'm just going to smush that down a little bit with my bone folder. So that's the first one. Let's do this blue one now. So this one. So So I like this bit here, and that's the piece I'd like to use for my pocket. Just have a look. Just over that way a little bit. Okay. So that's, I know where I want it. Now I'm just going to put the glue onto the front pocket. Okay, same thing again. We're just going to push that down onto the piece of wallpaper. But, I've got that in the wrong spot, haven't I? Need to come over here. Okay, just going to use my bone folder to make sure that's pushed down properly, because I'm probably going to have to add some more glue because I did put it in the wrong spot to start off with, so it's probably taken some of that glue off. With this vintage wallpaper, it's got a real texture. It almost feels like glue on the back of it, which is not bad actually. I don't mind the texture on it, but it does help it to stick really well too. Okay, so we're just cutting that out again. That out of the way, and I just trim up any little bits that are overhanging that I've missed. Just a little bit here. And once again, I'm just going to grab my bone folder and really swoosh that down. Make sure it's sitting properly. So now we have our two library pockets. Next step will be for me, as I'm going to grab my, this is a 1-inch hole punch, I think it is, and I'm just going to sort of center it on there. Just need to trim that one's not straight. Okay, that's better. So I'm just going to center it on here, about halfway down. Pop that out and do the same with this one. I will show you another way of doing it. I wasn't sure how to go with this, so sometimes I will just bring those two side pieces together and just give it a little pinch. And you can see here where I've pinched it. Put that in there, trim it out, another hole punch done. Now here we are going to use our, well actually there's two things you can do here. So for starters, I think I might like to use some distress ink to, this is tea dye, this one, just to go around the edges and define all of that, and I'll do that on both of these. I'm not going to do the sides of here because we're going to use some of our faux vintage tape that we made last week. I think it was last week or the week before. And this week it'll be, we're going to use some of it in some projects. Okay. So the ink doesn't seem to go onto these bits of wallpaper as well as I would like, but I'm okay with it. So now we've got these two. Now to grab our, just turn that straight. Now to grab our bits of tape. So on this first one, this was that tape that I had that was not transparent, it was opaque. I think I might like to use that one again. So it's this one here. Whoops, this one here. what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pop it directly onto there and just make sure I have it in as far as I want it to come over the side. Then I'm just going to trim that piece off. Leave that sitting there for a minute, and I'm just going to fold it around the back. So as simple as that. This tape does have quite a good hold on it, so I don't feel the need to actually put any extra glue onto it. So move this back into place. I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to go this way. No, it needs to go this way. So once again, I'm just going to pop it down the side where I want it. Okay, and we're going to trim it off. I could have used not a tape that's not as wide, but I really liked the way these tapes turned out. So this in particular tape. I might do a different tape on this blue one. I might grab one of the more transparent ones, maybe one of the thinner ones. So that's what we've got so far. So now we've got the pocket made. Now we'll just do our second pocket. And I'm just going to use some transparent tape on this one. I'm going to go this way this time. There's not a lot of room on my desk today, and I'm using a new this red and white underneath me just to see if it's any better for viewing. I quite like it, but it's everything, when I'm using tape, everything gets like stuck to it. But essentially it's a grease-proof paper that I brought from, what's the name of it, Wayne's World, I believe it was, in Kingaroy. It was $3.50, just under $3.50 for 25 sheets of it. And I thought I might like to use it in my crafting as well. There's the first one done, first piece put on. Let's hope this one's not as painful as that one was. So let's get that in the right spot. Okay. Oh, you wouldn't read about it, only because I've got the camera on. It's playing up today. Okay. The one I made before and I used the tape, it was fine. I never had any of this drama. Okay, that. I'll leave it stuck where it is, and I'm just going to trim it off. You can stay there for the minute. Just flip that around the back side and smush it down. You can, by all means, make these. You could have decorated the other side and still folded that over, and had it as a floating pocket as well, which is something I do in some of my journals occasionally. So the next thing we're going to do is, let me have a think. We've got to cut down some card. So I've done 2. These are 3 inches by 5 inches. Yeah, 3 by 5. And they started off at this size, which was 8 by 5. So I'm just going to grab my little trimmer. Sorry about this. It's a new setup, so I'm just bumping the camera just a little bit. I'm so terribly sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to cut these off at 3. Yep, that's pretty good. 1. We'll make 2 to go into each pocket. I've already cut 2, and these are the 2 for the next pocket. And that little bit will pop away for later. Okay. Now, a couple of things you can do. I didn't do it, and I'm not going to do it for this in particular project. And the reason I'm not going to do it is because I have tea dyed these before. When I tea dyed them the last time, or coffee dyed them, I should say, excuse me, the lines disappeared. So I ended up with no lines. Not that that would be a problem in this in particular case, because I am going to put a stamp over the top. Excuse me. Hopefully that's gone now. So now we're going to grab our stamp. I'm using some Memento ink for this in Tuxedo Black. And I'm just going to line up my card on some of these squares, just so that I've got a little bit square when I do it. I'll better put that up for you can see it. So I'm just going to ink my stamp. And I want to make sure I get a good amount of ink on there. Oops. Move that back into place. And what I'm going to do, this line here, I'm going to line up on one of these blue lines. So that way, it should be pretty even. I want to just give that a little bit of a press down. I don't want to move it too quick. Let that ink absorb onto the bit of paper. And there we go. There's our first one. So let's go ahead and we'll do the next 3 that we have here. Good amount of ink. Same thing again. Line this up. Line this line up with your first blue line. And push down. Okay, here's our second one. Oh, bugger. Turn that one over. Now these index cards, they're lined on both sides. So the good thing about that is that the other side you'll be able to write on as well as the front side if you choose to use it for journaling. Okay, put the lid back on that one. Okay, there's our 4 journal cards. Library for our library pockets. I will ink around the edges of these, and they fit perfectly into these little pockets that we have now. So now we're going to look at doing some sort of decoration on the front. So this one I've used some from stuff that Sally sent us for this challenge. I had some pattern paper and I've made some ruffle, and I've just used a blue thread, which will go well with both of these. Because there's bits of yellowy orange, I can get away with the blue in it. Probably should put some blue up here somewhere, but I haven't at this stage. So I also made some ruffle flowers, and that was in an earlier thing that I've got on the actual page. Let's trim that off a bit. I've got this little bit of blue trim. I'll probably use it on one of them, maybe not on both. I've got a little bow here as well, another little piece of that. This is of some sort of clothing, scarf, tablecloth, bedspread, I'm not sure, but a bit of crocheted lace, which I thought would look nice on these. So they'll go down there like that, and maybe put our bit of, cut off a bit of this one. this ruffle looks great on the edge of pages and things. So I thought we'd go something like that. Might put a little bit of this cotton that I've got a few projects, put that underneath, see what that looks like. I'll give it a little lift. So I've made this, I've done 2 strands of the twine, the blue twine, quite like that. I want a bit of this on here instead. I don't know whether I like that. I think that's what's throwing me off. I think I might do this one. And I might have this sitting underneath, so it sort of looks like the flower stem. Just trim it off a little bit, put it up higher. Yeah, I think I like that better. Okay, so now we've got 2 different designs to go on, well 3 if you count this one. So let's move this one out the way and let's put this one together. So this time I'm going to be using some fabric glue. This is Helmer's, I believe. Yep, Helmer's fabric glue. And I just brought this from Choice, and it's a discount store in Australia for those watching. So let's put this bit of ribbon down first. Sure I've got it the right way. Okay, so that bit's down. And I'm sort of leaving that outer edge unstuck down because I'd like the little bit of movement that it will create. I'm just going to put a bit more glue on here and pop down our threads. Bit of glue on the back of here. Once again, I'm using the fabric glue. It's a bit stronger, dries a little quicker, and because I've got a bit of metal in there as well. I'll put that down on top. So there's our first one done. Now let's move on to this one. So once again, we're just going to put a big glob of glue down to put that piece of crocheted lace on. And I will not take it all the way out to the edges because I like the movement once again. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to get our piece of ruffled pattern paper. Go that way. Pop that on there. Put in our bits of cotton. Put a little bit of glue on our flower, a little rosette-y thing. Put that on there. And then just pop our little bow on the bottom. Okay, let's move that around a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'll just come back in with our tea dye ink, and we will just ink these up, and then I'll put them all back together on the mat so you can see what we've actually created. So essentially the prompt for August was recycle, reuse. everything that's been used in this project, except for these cards that I've just made, have all been recycled and created into the projects that they are now. So the wallpaper obviously used to be wallpaper, it's no longer used, so we've created a use for it in our junk journals, which is really lovely. There's 2 of those done. Now the last 2. I think if I was to do this again, I probably would tea or coffee dye the index cards. Actually thinking I might like to put a little bit of tape on the front of those. A little bit more of that vintage tape on there. Let's grab 2 to go into this pocket, and 2 to go into this pocket. And here is the prototype that I made first of all. So that's the 3 of our, these are our 2 we've made before, and this is one I made earlier. So I've got some of this tape that has that vintage tape that was done on masking tape, on a 1/2-inch masking tape, this one. And I'm thinking I might like a little bit of it on here. Maybe just across the bottom on this one. I might have to add a little bit of glue to that one because of the type of tape that it is. And maybe this back over there. Maybe a little bit under here on this one. Take that off. And yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with those. I'm just going to put a little bit of that tea dyed ink just on the very end where it's showing a little bit white. And I'll take a good look at it, see if it needs any more glue on it, but it looks to be holding down pretty well. Okay, so this is our project today. We've made some library pockets using up vintage wallpaper from Sally, the two different kinds. We've used some of the vintage what they call sticky tape that we created using different alcohol inks. We've also used some of the didn't chop that bit off. Some of the things that Sally sent us in our package, like all of the rest of the little bits. This string was come from Sally's kit. It was actually wrapped around our package, so I've decided to bring that in. The lace was from Sally's package. The pattern paper, which the flowers and the ruffles were made of, were also out of Sally's kit. I've added the stamped record for the books, for our library pockets, and some of the little bits of cotton that come out of my cotton box that I have. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a very quick project, but because we're coming towards the end of the year, I just thought it might be nice if we had something to have a really good look at and just make a final project for the end of the month. You have a great day. See you later.